like, for example, one time I was walking out of Planned Parenthood and like these two like 15-year-old girls or 16-year-old girls were walking in and they were like, yo, like you're in street play. And I was like, oh, hey, like what's up?
Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Baby Arugula, and last week we finished season 1 of my very first series, Making Music with Baby Arugula. If you missed any of that, I'm going to flash a card somewhere on the screen right now so that way you can go check out that series because it's really cool. And the song that we worked on in that series is now available on streaming platforms and BandCamp, so you can find all the links down below in the description to that. Today, however, we begin a brand new series which I'm calling Conversations. I'm super excited to announce our first guest for this episode. They are good friends of mine and one of the most kick-ass bands of West LA of this generation. I'm of course talking about none other than Street Play. I'm going to leave links to their music on streaming platforms and their Bandcamp and their Instagram all in the description below. So definitely go check those out, go listen to their music, buy their merch, but do so after you watch this video. As always, remember to like and subscribe if you have a good time. This is going to be a longer video. We kind of just do what the series is called, conversation. We just have a conversation, so it goes on for a little bit. If you find yourself having a good time at any point in time in this video, definitely remember to leave a like and subscribe for next week's conversation and more series coming in the future. So without any further ado, I give you Street Play. I was debating whether or not I wanted to do like the whole YouTube intro thing in the interview or save that as like a separate thing, and I think I'm gonna spare myself the embarrassment.
Oh.
What's up, guys?
Yeah.
We're here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So y'all said that you were getting together for an interview today, right? I mean, not an interview, duh, that's what we're doing. Practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's in the future for y'all? What are you practicing for?
We're writing a ton of new music at the moment because we were gonna come out with a new album, but it's kind of on hold at the moment because we're not able to physically go into the studio. So we've just kind of been writing, doing what we can, like from here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's been like it's been a really good time for us to like really sit back and like think about like what we want to, output like as a band together.
Mm-hmm.
I think like shows are really amazing and they're like what we are always drawn to with playing. And so having that like taken away has kind of allowed us the space to like explore more of our sound. And so we've just been writing a lot of music for like new projects in the future and stuff. Yeah, so
Nice.
it's exciting, honestly.
Mm-hmm. That is cool. That's cool. What's the writing process like for y'all? Is it like a group thing? Do you have separate ideas that you bring to the table, or is it more like jamming?
Yeah, it's a combination. As of recently, it's definitely been more of a band thing, and I think lately we've had an easier time like writing together and building off each other's ideas. Usually it'll be like either Raz or I will write like a riff or some lyrics or a melody, and from then we all build together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Quarantine's been interesting. It's been like, well, it's been different for everyone, I think, but the opportunity for like introspection, and whether it's like personal reflection or tonal reflection and thinking about like as a group what we want to sound like. I've talked to a few people, and I've been talking to Henry and Cyrus a lot, and we've been kind of on that grind as well of like, okay, this is our opportunity to really come out on the other side.
Yeah.
Really knowing what it is that we want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. How you want to say something, Jake?
No, I just think that's pretty much the sentiment like we've been operating on. Mm-hmm. Just of kind of using it as like that time. It's kind of been a lull period where in the past we talked about how it's usually rehearsal is like a means of preparing for a gig, or like before the quarantine hit, we were writing and like actively recording. So now there doesn't seem to be really like a timeline other than our own. Like we were trying to like put out the record while we were in like this like huge like influx of shows. Like we were playing a lot and like the shows were getting bigger, and the lineups were like getting to the point of like where we were proud of like every single band we were putting on and stuff like that. So now it's kind of like shifted the focus more on like putting out just like a good product when we feel like it's ready. Like there's not a lot of like external stress in like it has to get out now so that people, we have something to promote, or something like that. Even though we do want those things still, it's just kind of been put more on the shoulders of like when we're feeling good about it and like actually feeling like each piece of music is its own like full statement, like nothing is compromised for the sake of getting the whole product out.
What you just reminded me of is, it's not exactly analogous, but something that comes up a lot in mixing and music production, which I am fully immersed in at this point of my life, is like, are you putting this effect on, or are you compressing this, or are you EQing this just for the sake of doing it because you think you should be doing it, because you feel this like external pressure that this needs to be processed somehow? Or have you listened to it critically, and decided for yourself, this needs this, there's something is missing here, I need to do this, and you have a reason for every decision that you make, or are you just applying this just for the heck of it, and in the end creating a worse product by doing that?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And like on those lines, like in terms of production, we've taken this time like to really like think about those like deliberate uses of technology and like specific effects. Like we've been ruminating with the mixes we have so far for the record, and like really like getting into the nitty-gritty of like what little thing could we add that would boost this vocal part, or boost this guitar part, or boost this drum part. Even like our approach to like the overall structure of the record has become a lot less confined to what I would say are the norms of production. Even like we have some songs that are completely left field of the usual, I think, mixing process. Like there's some stuff that's very stripped back and does not utilize every single element of the band. So it leaves a lot of room to fill that in with things that actually contribute to the atmosphere of the song, I would say, like to actually put you in that feeling that's being sung about, or like sounds like you're just in this room where things are kind of popping left and right and keeping you on your toes. So it's a lot more like kind of like what you were saying, like a lot more deliberate use of those little tricks and stuff like that.
Nice. Whoa.
I think it's also like an interesting time because I think in the past, a lot of what's shaped our music is playing shows and like seeing the reaction of the crowds. And like, as true as that music, like, was to us at the time and stuff, I think it's also interesting to have the writing process be completely like inward, or like completely between us, because I think it brings out like what we want to be playing and not necessarily like what makes the crowd move the most or whatever. Not that like either anyone is like better than the other, but it's just like a different form of writing, and like it brings out a different essence, I think, of the band.
Definitely. That's a really cool dynamic. I don't know, that dynamic between like writing because you're playing shows and this is what drives the crowd, and then writing because, whoa, I'm finally left alone to my own devices, is not a dynamic or it's not a line that I've walked across very many times in my life. So I'm excited to see where y'all take that, because I think that'll be really cool. I want to go back in time a little bit to the beginning. Yeah. How long ago did y'all meet, and did y'all just like, were you already playing your instruments? Was like, hey, you play instruments, I play instruments, let's play together, or like what happened?
Well, in terms of like when the three of us started playing together, Jenna and I had already been playing as street play for like a good bit, like probably like a year or something at least. And Jake came in, well, first he was filling in, but slowly it became very apparent that we worked super well together and that the dynamic was like really awesome, you know? So I suppose like we had been playing together like independently. Like I had been playing guitar for a while, and then I had started learning bass, and then that's when I met Jenna, and she was always a musician, like singing and playing guitar. And then Jake's been a drummer for like as long as I've known you, for sure.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it was just like a slow process where we realized that we had a really great like dynamic as like playing together and as friends too, and all of it. So I don't know if that covers it well.
Yeah. We started playing all together, I think it was 2017. But Jake had filled in prior to that, like during our first couple shows.
So when did street play first become a thing? When did y'all first designate yourselves as street play?
Yeah, so Raz and I had known each other through a mutual like childhood friend, and we just kind of knew of each other. We knew that we had similar interests in music.
Emo.
Yeah, I knew she went to work tour, so I was like, I have to meet her. And so one day we like decided to get together and jam, and it was like a little awkward and like, you know, but we like instantly clicked and like got so excited about each other's ideas and inspirations, and I guess it became really apparent like that very day that we wanted to work together. And then, you know, we started hanging out more, and then there was like one specific sleepover that we had where we wrote like 5 songs in that night, and we were like, okay, so we have to start a band. Like, yeah. And that was back in 2016, 2015, yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, wow, we just wrote an EP for the band we're going to start.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
That's so
And
fun.
so did any of those songs make it on to Sirens?
Oh.
No. Wait.
I don't think so.
I think those were all like very, very early. Like, I don't know, street play, I guess. Like, it was just, that probably came out, or we wrote those like almost 3 years before Sirens. And so I think in like in the year prior to Sirens, I think that was when we were honing the songs that were on the album the most, probably. Yeah. So no, long story short, no, but I think they were like a really good basis for us, like creating what ended up on Sirens.
I think we had to get a lot of that sound, that like basic, you know, sound out before we wanted to start taking risks, and we wanted to start making more music that identified with ourselves. And you know, at the time we were so young that we didn't even know what ourselves were yet. So like, but in that process it all came together, and I'm happy with what was on Sirens either way.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, thanks.
A couple minutes ago. Yeah, go ahead, Jake.
Thank you.
No, I was just gonna say, I think that's really well put, like about working out the influences and stuff like that, because there really is like I think the start of any band, there's like that kind of trial and error period where you get together and you kind of throw your influences off of each other and see which parts stick, and then from that, like the actual sound kind of emerges, because there was like a project of that very early stuff pre-Sirens, that where a lot of those influences like were getting worked out, and you know, there's a semblance of what has progressed into where we are now. So that's really what it was just like it's kind of like throwing like, I don't know, like, you know, those, my metaphorical brain is failing me. But you know, like in like middle school when you'd like throw paper towels against a wall covered in water,
Oh my
and like some of them
God.
would stick.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is. It's like
So
you like
funny.
throw a band that you like, and then like it either sticks to the wall or it doesn't stick to the wall. So then like, yeah, that's the grossest metaphor I can think of. But
Sometimes
yeah.
it's gross though.
in a good way. But yeah, so I think there was a lot of that working out.
Yeah, because like in the early days, we were playing like literally every different type of genre like you can think of. I feel like we covered like every different kind of band. Just because I don't know, like it was both of our first bands together, and like we were both so hyped on it that we were like, let's just try it. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
We had no concept of like
Yeah.
like whoa, this like fits us more or whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think it was really good to like, I don't know, you always have to get all of it out, you know?
Yeah, because as much as, I mean, sometimes we'll think of those like really early stuff and it's kind of like, oh, like, it's kind of cringy, but I don't love them any less because without it, we wouldn't have had the sound that we do now, or we wouldn't have known what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. And I even still like reference them sometimes, like like when we're thinking about like ways we're gonna sing together, we'll be like, oh, we can do it like in this song, like one of the first songs we wrote together, like maybe that'd be cool for the chorus. Yeah. And then like in bass lines, I was writing a bass line for like one of our new songs, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll do this like really specific like lick I did in this like old song. And so I don't know, it's fun to take from because like it's still bits of us, you know what I mean? So.
Absolutely. I really enjoy that experience of having this catalog of old references from like however long ago. It's just like this one song that, well, at least like for me in my experience, Henry and I have a few of those where like we played the song once, but it'll still be so funny to us anytime we it always will be. This is great. I'm having a good time. It's nice to talk to people.
Same.
Same.
Glad to see y'all are happy and healthy.
Same to you, dude.
Yeah.
It seems that way. Are you all happy and healthy? How's the mental and emotional state of street play?
I think it's good, especially that Halloween is rolling around. We're all
this is
like,
our time.
Good.
We're most powerful right now.
Are y'all gonna be trick-or-treating?
No.
We'll be tricking.
We'll be tricking and treating ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a good one. So, kind of dwelling in that realm of the past, where did the inspiration for the name Street Play come from? That's been a question I've had for a while, actually, 'cause for the last I've known y'all for like 2 years now. And so for like a year before that, Henry just kept talking to me about y'all. And most of my time was spent.
What a sweetheart.
I would just hear the name, Street Play, and I'm like, oh, that's sick. And then I listened to Sirens and I'm like, oh, this is fucking dope. And then it was like, Street Play. What does it mean? Is it as simple as just, like in the street, or like, what does it mean to them? And then just like, I've been fascinated with the name all this time. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to know more about it.
Well, I think more or less it was something that we definitely identified with in our youth. I feel like in any youth growing up in a big city, like escaping, you know, whatever angst that you were going through, and, you know, roaming the streets with your friends, and, you know, finding a home in something that can be so scary, like the street and the city, and making it like a play yard. And I think that was like the main inspiration. Literally, we had just written out a bunch of things that we identified with in a book, and Street Play was like kind of the last one. But yeah, I think it's just, it's very reminiscent for us, and like growing up in LA. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like when I think of like the freedom of like your youth, you know, because we started the band at like a pretty like pivotal time in our lives, I think. Like, I don't know, we were both like, I was like 14, Jenna was like 16 or something. And so it's like when you're really starting to like, I don't know, kind of find yourself in a lot of ways. And I think like growing up in the city, the first place you look to is like the big buildings and like all the different places you can explore. And so like a lot of my like most like, I don't know, influential times that I experienced were like with Jake or Jenna, like in downtown or just like in Culver, Venice or whatever, like skating around. And like, I don't know, I remember Jake and I went to this like show at Honey Trap like forever ago. And we were just like running through the buildings, so like
bizarre.
Yeah, or like when we would all go to like the rec center or something. I don't know. Like I think street play is just like that freedom and like us kind of like becoming ourselves. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. I'm happy. I'm enlightened. That makes me feel just like thinking about street play will now just forever be associated with youth in my head. And
and I think it's something like that I think going forward, you know, like we've all kind of grown underneath the moniker. So like it's been the name, and as like the older we get or the different things we experiment with, you know, it kind of develops a new meaning every time we revisit it. Like whenever like we do, like we're doing something for a new record or something, like the definition seems to really change and evolve, because I feel like, you know, when you do grow older, like you still engage in the activities that like you enjoy and stuff, but a lot of it now, like the way I see it is like we still have the luxury to play to like kids sometimes, and like to like really give youth an outlet that like I know I didn't have until it was very late. Like I wish I could have had it when I was like 16 or you know, like even younger. And like sometimes kids are coming out and like finding an identity within the scene, and like we're happy to be a catalyst of that, and you know, provide like a safe space for that kind of like exploration of your own values and personality and, you know, youthful rebellion. Like I think we're happy to have other people under that umbrella as well.
Interesting to see like the scene grow as we've grown too, because I think when Jenna and I first started playing, like a lot of the shows that we were seeing were like backyard shows in like Culver or something. Like I feel like the punk scene over there was like kind of the only thing I knew about that was like of this, I don't know, kind of like feeling and like in like community, you know what I mean? And so I think like as we were like developing our sound and like developing as like kids turning into young adults, I think so too did like the scene around us, which was like a really cool like parallel, you know what I mean? It was like a really great outlet that like, I don't know, we were able to find so much like connection through, you know, like with you and like, you know, Henry and like all the homies, you know. So it's been a really great like journey, you know. I feel like street play almost like foreshadowed this.
Yeah, it's really nice having a community of people to grow in parallel with and side by side and be like, wow, I've changed so much. And then you look at your friend and you're like, holy shit, you've changed so much. Crazy ass adventure together. I wanted to ask, which we've kind of alluded to with the 5 songs that you wrote at that sleepover. Was there a point at which, as a band, was now speaking specifically about Sirens, though, was there a point at which you collectively realized that like it was time to make a full-length record, or was that something that like as soon as y'all were together you were immediately working towards?
I think it was that we really craved something that we had put out that we truly identified with at that time, because some, you know, and I think so many other artists go through this, you know, people will ask, where can I find your stuff and where can I listen to you? And you almost don't want to tell them because you're like, well, none of the stuff that I have out is actually how we are.
Yeah.
So it was really that, and we wanted to like fully create something from the cover to the songs like that, you know, was true to us. And it's the same thing goes for the album that we're making now, because we don't necessarily identify with all of the themes in Sirens anymore, and we want to evolve into other genres, and like Jake was saying, like stuff that's stripped back or stuff that's weird, and you know, things that we identify with during this time. I think that was a big push for it.
Yeah, I always think about it too as like at a certain point, like you play something enough to where you're like tired of sitting on it and you kind of want to let it fly on its own. So like, I feel like with us, we have like this, we always have like these grace periods where like we have something out, and then while we're recording that, we're also still writing other stuff. So there's almost like a push. It's like, okay, we'll get this out and like we'll tell people about it, but then we also have this like in the pocket. You know? So I think in terms of like the full on record, there was like a process of writing and recording at the same time, but it also was a lot of like pre-written material that we were just trying to put into its truest form on the record, so that we could kind of move on into these other themes and genres that we were getting more inclined to.
I totally agree. Like, I feel like by the time we finished Sirens and like had everything out, it was almost like you're closing like the chapter and being like, okay, like we want you to hear this, and this is like what we've been working towards. Like, this is like kind of like what all our years together have like amounted to, and like hear this, and then like while it's out and people are listening to it, we can like hone our new sound, if that makes sense. I don't know. I think it's like a really good representation of like what we had worked for as a band when we first like started playing as a 3-piece.
Right. Yeah. That's so true. I've talked to a few people about this. I feel like every time that Henry, Cyrus, and I call, we end up gravitating back towards this general topic, and it's just like Seven, our album. Most of those songs we've been playing since like 2015, and the album didn't come out until 2018. By the time the album came out, we were like, we're fucking done with this shit.
Yeah.
Still like the only thing that we have to show anyone that we've done. And at this point, it's like we're so far behind that there's like our pockets, our back pockets, to go with your analogy, Jake, are like bulging and tearing at the seams. And if we could take one thing out, it wouldn't make a difference. That's kind of why quarantine has, you know, I'm not gonna praise quarantine, but it has been helpful to an extent in kind of sorting through that back pocket.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I mean, it is a great time for that kind of reflection and like sorting through and picking out what's real to you and stuff. But like to the opposition of that, I don't know, sometimes I think it's cool to like you were saying about like having, you know, kind of like a asynchronous record, like you've been playing certain songs since 2015, some stuff's newer, like you kind of do have like a small chronology inside the record, and I think that's really unique, and like it's an experience and like a specific you know, state that I think only musicians have the capacity or like the privilege to have, which is like you have like auditory stimulus for your memories. Like you have you can listen to a song and be like, I remember where we were when we wrote that, or like where we were when we decided that part was cool, or like when a crowd first heard it. Like you have those small little benchmarks of growth within the greater work that makes it really special, and like makes it so that someone's like, that new song is really cool, and it's like, it's actually an old song, and I think it's hilarious.
Which is funny. I have a few questions about Sirens, but it's funny to continue with questions about Sirens after being like, yeah, it's like, you know, it's what we identified with then, but not necessarily now, and we're doing this, and Keep asking questions about it.
I think it's still though, like I totally like rep Sirens.
Yeah.
So hard. So like don't worry.
Yeah.
And like it's like what we said about our earlier work. It's like no matter what, it's still like a part of who we are. And so it's honestly nice to answer questions about Sirens. Because I'm like, wow, I haven't thought about this for like a few months.
It's probably also more concrete now in retrospect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Probably congeal it easier.
Mm-hmm.
So fire away. Sir.
Yeah.
Okay, rapid fire. No, kidding. I guess in bouncing off of like where the inspiration for Street Play came from, where did the inspiration for the name Sirens come from?
I think it was definitely something that we had. It was a theme that kind of kept coming up. Even with our band name, we were like, oh, well, Sirens, because, you know, we're all very much into like mythological creatures and stuff. Like, and Sirens was kind of something that we liked, the duality of like the creature who lures sailors, but also the literal sirens that we constantly hear living in a big city. So we thought that it was like the perfect balance of both for that album.
Yeah, that was the whole idea, is just to have like both, like the two sides of Street Play is like, you know, a lot of our lyrics deal with very like metaphorical things. Like we might have a song about like a werewolf, but like it's really a metaphor for like, I don't know, or like an abusive relationship or something like that. And like and then to have like Sirens also represent like Street Play, like as a band, and like in like what our name represents and like where we come from and what we identify as, like as Angelinos and stuff. So yeah, just like having those two sides.
Yeah.
Which I said, basically.
Well, now I'm going to fascinate on that for the next 6 months or something. So who was involved in the production of Sirens, as far as like literally placing mics and then, you know, mixing and so on and so forth?
Shout out to Patrick Gardner down at wherever he is now, but he's
in Culver, right?
He's in Culver. Yeah.
I know, does he live in Eagle?
I don't
well,
know.
I guess we should.
He's somewhere, but he was. The production for that, we were fortunate enough to get approached by him after we played a show at Fiesta La Bayona in Culver, which is cool.
You guys, Henry broke this to me. You guys played Fiesta La Bayona the year after we did. You guys played in 2015, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Played 2014.
Wow,
Dang,
that's
I wish
awesome.
I saw
Yeah,
that.
God, what the heck?
No.
Wow, I was probably there.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, same. That's insane. That's super crazy. Maybe I was there.
2015?
2014.
14?
Probably
I was
was.
definitely.
I was there
definitely.
for sure. I might have played there. We'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were approached by him after we played that set. He gave us a business card, which was super cool. He's like a teenager with business cards.
So professional.
You're like, he's
unheard of.
legit.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, yeah, he approached us to record it or to record some of the songs that we had played that night. And we showed up to UCLA where he was going at the time. And we were able to record in like this huge like sound stage that they record, like the marching band and the orchestra, like all this crazy shit. And like we're like 3 people with electric instruments, you know, plugging in there. So it was definitely like not a conventional, I think, rock record setup, because we were focusing a lot on like keeping this tone of like her orange amp, and like we like a big bass sound, so using the room to our advantage in that sense, and then like big drum sounds, but then also condensing drum sounds. So there was a bit of a duality there, but we had access to all this equipment that like I think we're very fortunate to have as like a band making their first like actual debut record. Like we had this one mic that was like gold. It was like encased in gold.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, like shiny. And we were just in awe of some of these things and these practices. So I think it was almost like a class. Like we'd go there at like 9 at night, set up for 2 hours, record for 2 hours, tear down for an hour. And we kind of just like learned the ins and outs of like what it took to like mic our instruments properly, or like get to the sounds that we wanted to get to for that particular song or record in general. So it was really fun. Like we developed a great relationship with him in the mixing process too. Like he's such a wacko. So
he's so great to work with.
It was so great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think back very fondly to those days. Going there and like, I don't know, it was great.
Even though sometimes it could be like really brutal, like we'd be there so long and like at night.
There's the one time we were there, we were in like one of the mixing labs at the time, and we were there's like an interlude on the record called Davy Jones that Raz plays bass on, and it was just me, Jenna, and Patrick in the studio, and it was 1:30 a.m. and I was in the sound booth snapping and like trying to get it good.
I thought Raz was there, but she was asleep.
Raz was asleep. Raz was asleep on the couch.
You took a video of me.
You're just knocked out.
And I was snapping in the booth, and Jenna had like her head in her lap, and Patrick was like bent over the board like an inch away from the screen, and I was snapping in the booth.
Yeah.
So there's moments like that, but I think it was really funny, like in retrospect.
Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to do it with anyone else, like in those conditions.
Yeah, and I remember it'd be so cold in the winter.
Yeah.
You'd, like get out of the studio and be like, oh my god.
Dang.
It was fun.
Yeah, good times.
I miss it.
I know.
We gotta text him.
Yeah.
Since Henry and I did 7, every time that we're together for like some vacation, which now I'm fucking finally graduated.
Nice.
3 times.
Congrats,
Amazing.
It's like, okay, we got 3 weeks. Let's try to put something together. And it's like too stressful. Just trying to grind, like, okay, we got to write these songs and then we got to get good at them. And then we're the kind of people who are like, if we're going to record something together, then we want to play as much of it live together as we can. Instead of just being like, okay, here's the drums. Oh, we messed up here. Let's just punch in these 2 bars. Do it as much in one take as possible and as much of it together. And it's just been so stressful to get it done in those tiny increments of time. Whereas like working on 7, it was the end of senior year, not going to class, spent most of my time living at his house, like his parents let me stay there, and we would just wake up, set up microphones, be like, you know what, I think I want to put this crappy line 6 in the shower and hang a mic from the glass door. And try that, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you can have fun just like fucking around.
Yeah, totally.
It's an extremely fortunate situation to be in, to like be able to have like a space to like explore like that, like to have the ability to do that. Because I know like I've spent a lot of time like in Henry's back house as well, like doing that same stuff, and it's really fun to have like a playground for it, because there's some time like when we would go into that big production studio, like there's like such a professional board and like all that space that you have to fill with your sound, like it can be daunting, and like it could be a little overwhelming and stuff to like have to be on that timeline to be like, okay, we need to get this done today, and if we don't, then we're behind. Like it can kind of saturate your output a little bit. So like doing what you guys do in that space is like, it's really cool and commendable to be able to just like get into the nitty gritty of like experimenting and even just like fucking off and being like, I'm gonna hang a microphone in the shower, like, it's an awesome luxury to have. So, and you guys, like that record is awesome. Like,
it is.
So.
All right, so this next one is kind of a silly question.
Like a hole in my cheek. I keep spilling water out of my mouth.
Like Fight Club.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I have a weird relationship to this question when I watch interviews and hear this question asked, but I couldn't resist. I had to ask it. Do y'all have a favorite song from Sirens?
I know I do.
From Sirens?
Yeah.
Fuck. It like changes every day.
Yeah, I think it changes all the time. I think it's so hard because I really like feel like I have such a relationship with each of them.
Yeah.
But
Do you mean like? Wait, go ahead.
I feel like personally, my favorite was "Don't Tell Your Mama," which is the last song. Yeah, the last song on the album. Because kind of like how we were saying before, like the song really encompassed a time. And at that time, I'm pretty sure Raz and I were heavily working on it during this road trip to San Francisco. And that trip in itself was just like such a growth, like I think for each of us, but like I really felt like so much came out of that trip. We got into like a really heavy car crash and like
that
just a lot of life and death situations and like, and we wrote that song.
And I remember it was like we had left, like there was a party that night, and then in the morning we left, and so it was like we're leaving like the scene, and I feel like it was a really like pivotal time.
Yeah,
like, I don't know.
And just that song, I just feel like it conveys a lot of emotions for me, and like there have been at least 2 times playing that song live where I've like broken out in tears, just so much like passion and like happiness, even though it's such a sad song. And like, so I think that song really holds a lot of weight for me. Like when it comes on, I can't skip it. But yeah.
It's funny that you say that, because I was talking like 2 days ago, literally about that song, because I was talking about the lyrics. Like, I was discussing like about like lyrics. We're talking about like lyrics being standalone. Like if you can like read lyrics and they have like the same effect,
right,
as like when they're sung, and like just about that kind of idea. And then I was thinking about songs that we've written, and I was thinking about that song, and I was like, wow, like as I was thinking about it and like reading the lines aloud, I was like, wow, I actually like this song really like resonates. Like it holds, I don't know, it holds like a very deep place in my heart. So I would probably say Don't Tell Your Mama too. I think honestly in the future, I would be down to explore recording that again, honestly, just because I feel like I'm almost like, I'm not done exploring this song.
Yeah.
So
maybe a part 2.
Yeah, literally. And so probably Don't Tell Your Mama.
Tell Your Mama.
Tell Your Mama.
The secret.
Coming clean. And then I'm trying to think of like another song on there that I really don't. I'm gonna come back to that maybe, but Don't Tell Your Mama.
Yeah, that one's awesome. That's a great song. Such a catharsis playing that. It's definitely one of the first songs I noticed there being like a visible different response, because there are songs on the record that are great. Like we have like I Like to Watch You Drive on there, which like still to this day, like people will ask us to play, which is awesome. Like, and we love playing that. It can be a really great like closer. But you know, like there's those kind of tunes that are just like, they're pretty just like straightforward in your face, like fun to dance and move around to. And I feel like that's kind of a blueprint for the scene. It's like that kind of like fast, like aggressive, but also like fun kind of rock that people like to move to. But then with Don't Tell Your Mama, like there was like you could really see the shift in the audience response and like the way they move and like the way they actually like listened or paid attention. You know, there was a lot more engagement instead of like beat is fast, I dance.
Yeah.
Like a lot less just like intuitive response. So that was really cool, I think, to see that. But I think my favorite songs are more the ones like where we diverted from those, like those kind of elements. I like the groovier stuff because I'm the drummer, so it makes sense. I would like that. So like Arachnid is one that I'm really proud of, just because it is very like stripped back in essence, but it has such a theme to it. It's kind of sultry and smooth, and then it gets aggressive, but it carries a different weight than the rest because it's a territory that I think we were afraid to explore. We were like, is this too straightforward? It's kind of like groovy. Like, do we do groovy? Like, we haven't really done that before, and like where it fit in the record. So I really like that one. I really like the drum beat I play on it. And I really like the bass line, and I like the lyrics.
It's good.
I think Rebel also is a really good song in terms of like the dynamics between all of us. Like I think we all play very like specific. I don't know. Also, like Rebel was where like the name kind of came from, because I remember being like, because Jenna wrote like Sirens Don't Stop, and that's like kind of where the title of the album came from too. And yeah, I think I like the bass line I play on there too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the one I like to play the most.
Yeah.
But it's always, I remember like when we used to play, like we'd usually put Rebel as like the last song or something, and I always remember being so tired of being like,
the last push.
Yeah.
I think also just like one last one.
We've gone through the whole record at this point.
I think I also like hold a lot of sentiment for Perfect and Worthless, because Raz had written that song, and I like immediately fell in love with it, and just love all the words, and I can identify so many life experiences with it. And I remember being in the studio, and I like pulled Raz aside and asked for her permission to like sing it on the record, and she was kind enough to let me, and that like meant so much to me, because I love that song, and like every time I pick up a guitar, like an acoustic guitar, I'll start playing that song. So like yeah, whenever I listen to it, I just feel so grateful that like she let me carry on her song. Yeah.
And from another perspective, like it is another one of those songs where I don't think it was the expected route for us. Like from previous like shows and stuff, like we don't really bust that one out too often. And I think that's what makes it like a real staple of the record, which is like, it's like a really calm dose of, I think, some of the potential that we have, which is like to take it back and like make something that is, because sometimes we like approach beauty in the songs in a harsh way to where it's kind of paved over by like a really aggressive riff or something cool. So it's not like so in your face beautiful, but that one was like really in your face beautiful, like in terms of like how it was written and performed and all that. So I just think that's cool to like have a record that's able to take people through different facets of what you can do while also maintaining like the key integrity of what it is that makes it you know? Like it's not like we don't have like a reggae song and then like, you know, like a rock ballad, but we have our versions of that, you know, like what us, like how we fit into those genres, like what our interpretation of that sounds like. So, yeah.
I think it was also really cool. I remember when we were playing around with like the order of songs once we had recorded like pretty much everything, because we were in the studio I remember we were in like a different studio on the other side of campus, and we were all like literally writing on like a notepad, like, what about this? What about this? And like being able to kind of like have the album be like a journey, for lack of a better word, and like that has like ups and like downs, and then like the interlude of Davy Jones like kind of separating the two halves of the album. I think it was a really fun way of exploring like what we've created and like seeing how that tells a story, you know. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if bands intentionally do this or it just inevitably comes out as like a product of who they are. But I really appreciate how this album really does flow, and it's not just like a compilation of attempted singles. They're all like, they have a place in the album, and it feels like they belong there.
Thanks.
And
thank you for thinking that.
That is high praise, because I mean, all of us are DJs. So like we have I think that intuitive like desire to have like a flow and like I think after playing shows also, like it's impossible not to think about the order you're playing songs. Like we always try to think about like, okay, we bring them up and then we like level them out and they groove a little bit, and then we bring them back up, and then maybe we take them down and then we bring them back up. You know, like it's fun to toy with people because it creates more of like an active engagement. Like people are actually listening, not like here's 15 30-second blast beat songs and do with that what you will, which
I'm gonna leave them.
like I think it it's the polite thing to do for your audience, like to actually give them an experience to engage with in that moment, like to really spend the time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that frustrates me so much is when the singles are within the first three songs of the album.
Oh yeah,
that's a very good point. Yeah,
What am I supposed to listen to now?
yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, it's like when they show the whole movie in the trailer.
Yeah, exactly.
They will overcome. It's like, well, then I don't need to see it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I really appreciate like you got to wait 8 songs before you hear Teeth Puncture Lust, and then Rebels after that.
Yeah.
And Perfect and Worthless. So I listened to Sirens a couple times, like when it first came out, and then kind of hadn't listened to it again for a while, and was going to shows with y'all and would see y'all play. And there were a couple songs like Heavy, I Like to Watch You Drive, Rebel, and Teeth Puncture Lust, and those were ones that I would hear and I knew by name as soon as the riff started playing. But there were a lot of songs that, because I kind of like hyper focused on the ones that I knew, I kind of forgot about a lot of the songs. And I was listening like actually intently and just sitting in front of the speakers and just enjoying it for the first time in a while. And when Perfect and Worthless came on, I was like, what the fuck? Like, how did this slide under my radar the first time that I listened to this? Where was my head at this time, or at that time? So I appreciate that you went into so much detail on the creation of that song, because it feels special listening to it, and knowing that it actually came from a genuine special place is special. I'm glad that we have that whole story recorded now.
Yeah, thanks, dude. That's really sweet. That's really kind. That was so funny, like to record that, because I think in terms of production, that was like the rawest song. It was like,
that was a one take, like
it was one take, and it was just a mic on the acoustic. On the acoustic guitar.
Yeah,
you played guitar.
Oh my god, yeah.
And then the bass is an overdub from her as well.
You're right, yeah. You know what I really liked about that song? Not to like sound like we're like, tooting our own horns or playing our own instruments, but I really like how like the drums are really roomy in the opening. Yo, that's like my shit. Can I say bad words on here? Is that okay?
We've been.
Cool. Have we? Okay.
In fact,
because I actually like.
You got to get some.
I'm sorry.
You're under quota for how long we've been going on, so you need to get.
And so I remember I used to really love this one artist on SoundCloud that I like have only ever been able to find like weird like YouTube dubs of his music. But there's this one song of his where the drums are completely like in another room, it sounds like. And I remember being like, that would sound so amazing on Perfect and Worthless. And so I really liked that it was just the opening.
Yeah.
And then it like goes in.
Tightens up.
That like production I was really hyped on.
Yeah.
So stoked.
That was and that's another way, like having access to that room, like that huge hall was like it was another one of those things that it kind of just lent itself to that song in particular, because that was one we hadn't even like really rehearsed much as a band. Like we
barely.
We kind of just like figured out the instrumentation and like the structure of it in the studio, and then we're like, okay, let's just do a pass of it, and we were really happy with it when it came out. And it was one of those ones that sometimes I think your greatest work is the one you don't even like have to like push. Like it didn't feel like you had to like birth the song. It just kind of like slid out, and I was like, oh, that's nice. Like, and it like, it was like really smooth, and like, I don't know, I really enjoy it. Cause even there was like a part at the very end where we were toying with this idea of there's this like really pretty melody that Jenna does at the very end where she's doing all like these beautiful oohs and such.
Oohs and ahs.
Oohs and ahs. And we were like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there was like multiple voices that did it with you? And we tried it. And then we realized like it was pushing too hard, like it didn't have that same like silky quality that we had enjoyed when we tracked it. Yeah. So we just kept it just her doing her damn thing. And it turned out really nice.
Yeah. at the end of the day, like, you know, we talk about how it's like a community, the scene is a community, it's so amazing, we grew up here, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, that's not always like a great thing, in a sense that like, there's also a responsibility with that, you know, like you always have to be there for your community, you know, like if you're going to claim it, you know. And so I just think it was like a rough time, but we tried to bring positivity into it, if you guys agree with that.
Yeah, it was definitely, as women in the scene, we've been extremely like grateful to not necessarily have such negative experiences. I mean, we've been catcalled and harassed on stage, and you know, people say you play great for a girl, and we go through things like that, but we've never, you know, gone through such an invasion of physical space. Although, you know, there are moments we've been groped at shows or in a mosh pit. It was disappointing to see something so overtly violent in the scene and with people that we knew. But like Raz said, it was a huge priority for us to just support and not necessarily voice publicly how much we support like this thing that's happening, because street play has been that from the get-go. And I think it goes without saying. And I think publicly and on social media, we really just wanted to leave an open door for survivors, and also for bands that haven't necessarily ever vocalized any kind of support or remorse for, you know, assault issues. And so we kind of just felt like it was more important to hear from those perspectives than from a band who has been talking about this from the beginning. But yeah, it was difficult, but I think also it was important that we all, like the three of us, came together and we had several conversations about it. We still have conversations about it. And I think it's an important thing to take from it, and to have active conversations consistently with your groups of friends or your community, and brought so much to light and ways that we can go forward in making it safer and more comfortable, because we have like no tolerance for anything like that. Absolutely.
I think that was a silver lining of everything that did happen, was that I think the community of like, in terms of communication, like really came together to you know, really like have the much needed discussion on like comparing stories, even though it can be difficult, and it can be extremely difficult to voice those things and to make those things public to your friends. So I think that was one thing that came out of it that worked for good, was that there was this huge movement that called for the accountability of people who have done these things. So when it was made public and made aware to multiple people and to the greater scene, pretty much, the response, I think, was the icing on the cake that really solidified a lot of those things. Because there's we've talked about it, I think there's like a genuine feeling of remorse that can come from someone who's done these things, and there can be a reaching out to people who you have called friends, and then there's also the outward expression that it's an annoyance and it's something that like is you know, untrue. So it's when people, specifically people who've been called out, when they respond like that, I think it really solidifies you know, guilt in that specific context. So,
and I think especially like when those people who are being called out are more concerned about their well-being and their experiences rather than the survivor or what they've gone through or still going through, or even other women around them or their female friends. Like, you know, I definitely didn't hear from either of them, and not a lot of girls did, and you know,
no one did.
I mean, like, and how are we supposed to feel comfortable like around someone we called our friend who we know has committed something like that, and then to not support the survivor and to look out for only themselves and what they want. I think it made it very clear.
Yeah.
Beyond any sort of conception of like what it means for your future, like all that bullshit that gets thrown around, like you're ruining someone's reputation, blah, 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 whatever. Like, it's not, the problem is that lack of interior depth, like to go into your own brain and be like, oh, maybe I did really hurt someone. And that's the kind of response that I think Jenna is talking about, you know, like that ability to think about this person, like you're thinking about how it's affected you. And I think that's the sign of that kind of like narcissism and, you know, toxic behavior. Yeah, lack of empathy. It's just like a mixture of things. You shouldn't have to worry and like look over your shoulder or like be in fear. Like that's not what it's about. It's about having fun, rolling deep with a group of friends and like not having to fear any consequence or any like lack of empathy from
and that's
someone.
Why sorry to cut you off.
No,
I've been like so proud of like for example, one time I was walking out of Planned Parenthood and like these two like 15-year-old girls or 16-year-old girls were walking in and they were like, yo, like you're in street play. And I was like, oh, hey, like what's up? And they're like, yeah, like we love your music, like we've seen you so many times, like. And I was like, no way, like thank you so much for coming, you guys are awesome and whatever. And they were so cool. And I just remember, and they're like, yeah, we love going to your shows. And I remembered being like, wow, like that is so cool that like these young girls like feel safe at our shows and like feel like stoked to be there. You know what I mean? It's also just like a funny place to like meet them.
Yeah.
Like, symbolic. But yeah, it was just, I don't know, like I think those kinds of moments, like when you see like younger girls like being like, yeah, I love going to your shows because like I get to like, you know, Jenna's always like, yeah, all girls and like gender non-conforming people like come to the front. Like, I don't know. It feels like really good to be able to hopefully uplift people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and to hold a space for those people to feel safe and empowered, where, you know, during this time we don't really have that space. But I think like moments like that, it shows how important it is that we make it safe and that they feel comfortable. You know, we always say like if anything ever happens, you tell us, like you don't tell the venue, you don't tell security, like you come straight to us because you know, nowhere is safe sometimes. And you know, that's basically another thing we have been working on during quarantine is working on making this place safer for any women, gender non-conforming, or anyone who feels that danger, really, to feel safe there. Yeah.
Absolutely. That, after coming out of university, you know, either there'll be sexual assault or rape or something, and university institutions are so just like, keep it down low. We don't want any bad publicity. All that matters is that we're getting admission. They'll downplay anything, and it's always, well, what did you do to deserve this? And I feel like that's also part of the reason why you can't just trust any security at a show or something, you know. And so that people, you, other bands are taking it upon themselves to establish what will hopefully become the norms of our community and kind of claiming the power to establish the scene that they want to be a part of is really inspiring. And I think it's also like none of the issues that we're facing today are isolated. They're all like densely interconnected. And I think that degree of autonomy and also care for the people around you and empathy and holding space and centering the voices of those who haven't had that space or the autonomy or the power or whatever. The fact that we can actively do that instead of being beholden to like some other power above us is a good thing, and we need to take more steps towards organizing that for ourselves.
It's like the last few shows we played out like before quarantine, like we had 2 nights at the Smell where the lineups were all female fronted, non-binary like fronted bands. So I feel like, and it wasn't even, I think it was, we talk about it like it was the step in the direction we want to see more from the scene, because we didn't have to tokenize it as that, you know, like we didn't have to say like all female show or something, you know, like we didn't have to have that like plastered on the flyer. But people came out to support the bands nonetheless, and like women were safe at that show, and like they were brought to the front and they were able to like see, you know, women in power and like as, you know, the creative force behind the show. So it was one of those times where there didn't feel like there was a friction between anyone in the audience and the performers, and it was a seamless transition, and something that I feel, and I think we feel, is lacking, like having those kind of shows where it's not diversity for the sake of diversity, it's just a good lineup sometimes, you know, and like good bands, while also, you know, you shove in like the all female thing is kind of subliminal, like that's just the way it is and that's the way it should be sometimes. Like it's necessary, and frankly it was like 2 of the best shows we've ever played, audience wise and performances wise. Like it was just all around knockout. So
when it comes to like sexism and stuff, like I said before, it's definitely something that's always been evident in street play, and you know, that could very well be because Raz and I are women, and it's something that we've experienced way before we started a band. So even like, I think going to shows, it's pretty evident to us if it's a safe show or if it's not. And like Raz wrote this one lyric in one of our newer songs that I think puts it perfectly, and it's like, you know, and sorry if I misquote it, but it's like I don't feel safe at the show, and only the girls would know. And I think it's real. Like there was one show, the first show we played in 2020, which really set the note for this year. It was awful. And you know, we got really harassed on stage, and these people were saying these awful things and sexualizing Raz and I super heavily. And I think immediately after we came off stage, before it wasn't like a priority of ours to shut down these people and to come at them. Our first priority was finding all of our homegirls in there and saying, we need to leave, like we need to escape this area. And I think that kind of shows like our priority in the scene. It's not necessarily to go after these people. We just want to make sure, you know, our girls, our LGBTQ, our BIPOC are safe. And that's basically what I have to say.
Yeah, I think also like on a personal note, having like been a part of like these different like demonstrations, I feel like throughout quarantine, like I've seen like both sides of like humanity almost, in a sense that like I remember early on in quarantine, like I went to the grocery store and like there was just like nothing like at all, like, you know, everyone had like taken everything. Like it felt, I remember that day being like, I feel like everyone is just so selfish like in this world. Like I don't know, it really like colored my perception of like the society from which we come and everything. But like going to these different like demonstrations of like, you know, we're a community, like, and we deserve rights and everything like that. I think I've seen more community than I'd ever seen before among strangers, like besides maybe at a show, like just this unifying, like I have like idea of equality that like I think hadn't been talked about as publicly and as on this like platform in a very long time. And I think if anything, it showed me that like like people who are like with it like truly care about each other, and I think that restored a lot of my like I don't know, just like faith in like my like the community at large and like society. I don't know if this makes sense, but yeah, it's been like an interesting journey, like from like pre-quarantine, like already knowing like the dark sides of like the music scene like in the greater Los Angeles area, and then also like seeing the way that people can unite against discrimination of any kind. I don't know, I think it kind of like charged us with like um, a lot of purpose, you know, because like it's like what you said, like none of these problems are singular to themselves, you know, they all build off of each other, and like there's so many ways in which people can be complicit, and I think just like really taking the time to look at yourself and like look at your community and look at what the different ways you can help be a part of like some sort of solution. I think that that's what matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Jake, did you want to say something?
No, I mean they both covered it really, really well. I mean, I think just the time away from regular conventions of shows like really can bring clarity to certain situations and behaviors that, like we've said, have been passed off as normal, or that you toss off as it's just them or whatever, you know. It draws a lot of lines in the sand that I think are for the better, like in how we treat people at shows. I mean, we talk about things in the context of shows just because that's our world, you know, and that's like where we operate, and I think where we hold most sway in the creator world at this moment. But yeah, I mean, just not standing for it and assembling allies both within the scene and outside the scene to stand for the same things and make sure that the lineups are diverse and of, you know, the same mindset, that there's no tolerance for that kind of behavior or treating someone that way, whether they're in the pit or on the stage. Like there's just absolutely no excuse for it. And yeah, I think that's just it's the thing you can do, as much as you want to like break people's noses sometimes and fight fire with fire. I think the only thing you can do is divert the power to places that will not abuse it and will create a system that uplifts, and the silence from others has been deafening.
Yeah,
and
so
it's
true.
been well noted who has chosen to uplift voices and who has chosen to remain silent because it behooves them.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean,
yes, I said behooves.
Yeah, like I mean, even in that show that I mentioned earlier, like in January, like we immediately brought that to the collective's attention and to the band that was throwing it, and their reaction, you know, they said their condolences, but they was just kind of like okay, well, sorry, like, and that became very clear. We were like, okay, we don't work with them anymore, and like we don't associate with those collectives, and we make it clear to our community and to people who throw shows, like, don't work with them because they don't do shit like about awful things that are happening. And it's disappointing, but you know, like Jake says, it speaks volumes, and it just kind of solidifies how much we need to change, like as a community together.
Well,
yeah.
Well, it's been better recently, but like when I first moved back with my parents in March, after 2 weeks of being here, I tested positive for COVID, and then
Oh, how was that? I'm so sorry.
It well, obviously I'm alive, so it was definitely like better than it has been for a lot of people. It actually it was surprisingly not that bad. I had a light cough for like 2 or 3 days and a fever for like 4 days. And then it went away. It took another like 2 weeks for me to like actually feel like myself again. But I continued to test positive for the next 2 months, even without symptoms. And that was the time when they were still saying like, once your symptoms start, I mean, they were saying like once your fever goes away after a week or whatever, like you can go back to work and do stuff. And we were like, what the fuck? It's been 2 months. I'm still testing positive. And I was quarantined in this room. And there's 5 of us and 2 kiddies, and we're in a small apartment with one like small bathroom. So I had like 8 Gatorade bottles that I would pee in throughout the day, and then at night after everyone's in bed,
Dude, you went full on Howard Hughes. Oh my god.
Yeah, and
that's crazy.
It was bleak. Just like, it's just hard to live in a box, you know. The good, not the good thing, but like, I came out of it feeling like, well, at least I know I can live in a box for 2 months.
Yeah.
Well, dude, talk about album inspiration.
God, I'm
like,
so sorry.
Put that out. Trapped in a Box.
Yeah.
But I no doubt already did that.
Would you say it's like the worst you'd ever felt, like in terms of sickness? Like, had you had worse sicknesses?
Definitely, yeah. No, the sickness was actually pretty mild.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, obviously not the same for a lot of people, but I'm really lucky. But you know, my mom is she's had like brain surgery, she's had some other things, so she has like some she has some immune system issues, and would not be able to fight it off as well as I could. And so keeping the rest of the family safe was like a top priority. And even after testing negative finally for the first time, I was like, okay, the next 2 weeks, like if someone gets a cough, like we're in trouble, and I'm gonna be the one who has to take care of the rest of the 5 of us here. And it was just like really stressed out. And so for those 2 months, they would take me to go get tested like every 3 days or so, because we wanted to know as soon as I was negative. And the CDC was saying that you have to test negative twice, 24 hours apart from each other, before you could really know if you were negative, which is not what our government was saying. And so I just threw them all away because I used them all, but I had
bottles?
Huh?
No, sorry. Never.
Oh, the pee bottles? No. Those are long.
They're going to show us one. I was like, that's crazy.
That would be funny if I kept one on the shelf, but no. But I had a big stack of all of the emails of them being like, your appointment has been confirmed. Here's your confirmation number. Make sure you do this, that. And then the other emails that are like, here's your results. You're positive or you're negative or whatever. And so I saved all the emails, and then I like chopped out words and made like a silly thing.
That's cool.
So that's going to be the album cover of the song.
That's powerful.
That's really rad, man. I'm glad y'all are okay in the house. Like, that's good to hear, but crazy.
Yeah.
Glad you came out on top of it.
Yeah.
And we still don't know how I got it, which blows my mind. It's not the most obvious thing.
Right.
But yeah, crazy times.
You know if you have the antibodies now?
I don't know. I don't really know how that works.
I think it's just like a test, but I was just curious. So maybe it's like, well, at least now you won't have to deal with it again.
I have heard there was like speculation early on that you couldn't get it again once you got it. And then I've heard stories of people coming out saying, this is my second time with COVID.
Wow.
So, so I don't know what to think. But definitely I haven't left this home. I've gone to the park across the street a couple times, and that's pretty much it. I've just been in this apartment since March.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've been going on for a while now, but I have a couple things that I want to ask, kind of as just sort of as closers, I suppose. You guys have alluded to it throughout our time tonight or today, that you're working on a new album.
Yeah.
How is that going?
It's been great. I mean,
really
when we
fun.
started, it was awesome. We are working with Emilio Zoen. He's from Chill Trigger, and he's really awesome to work with. And we've been close friends for a while, which, you know, doesn't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically have been recording and mixing out of his room. But like we kind of said earlier, like we really appreciate this environment because it's not as professional. There's not like a crunch time, and it's so comfortable to work through. So we've actually been able to get through a good amount of material. We've had like 3 sessions, I think, and pretty much like half of the album tracked. So it's been really exciting, but we do have an issue with writing like too much. Like we just can't stop writing music, so we're just kind of like, what's on the album, what's not? Do we have another album in the works? But like still more to be grateful for than anything.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, as for myself, what's the word? The sort of norm that's been established of like releasing an album every 2 or 3 years, I think is so lame. So as soon as y'all want to like bust out another one, I'm
Yeah. Hell
Yeah, I would be so down.
Yeah.
We're just gonna be like Prince. We'll just have like an archive of like millions of songs.
Right.
We'll just throw a few in a compilation, and put them out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really fun, and you know, like all this stuff we've kind of talked about of like experimenting and finding new sounds and building off of things we kind of started touching on in the last record, and kind of seeing those tunnels through to the end, to the light, you know, and just kind of following through with all our what ifs, like not holding ourselves back, because I think many artists have the problem where you want to be the truest self you can be, but then you just end up impersonating yourself. So I think evolving and continuing to find new things to be inspired by, and just allowing the process to kind of dictate itself, and continuing to let each other be ourselves, you know, in this new environment. It makes for something that I think we're all like super excited for to see.
I'm so excited.
Totally.
I cannot wait.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. It's been a really great way to also like explore just like all the different ways we want to be expressing our, I don't know, like be like all the different iterations of our music that we can come out with. I don't know if that makes sense. We've been refining a lot, I think, too. Like we've been really like we've been finding some really great like unique styles to us, I think, and like, but they're not necessarily all the same, you know? Like, and now I think we really get to sit with each song and be like, okay, what does this, like, what do we need in this song? And like, I feel like we have the freedom now. Like, I can be kind of fussy with songs sometimes, and I'll just feel like it's just not right yet. Like, I just we need to sit on this for longer, you know? And so it's allowed us to like really, I don't know, really think about what is valuable to us.
Yeah, I feel like the ability to sit on a song, or even recognize when you need to sit on a song, like maybe it's different for everyone, but for me that was like a skill that I had to develop almost. Basically, like the way that I started, the way that I learned guitar actually was just by writing songs with bar chords, and I would record them through GarageBand on my old iPod. And
So cool.
just like the world was my oyster, or is that the thing? And it was just right. and like, you know, most of it sucks, which it would anyway because I'm new to writing songs at that point. But now if I have an idea, I'm much more patient and I can be like, okay, this is cool.
Right.
Next time I'm in a jam circle with someone, I'll bring it up and see what they do, and then I'll bring it up in front of someone else and see what they do.
Wow. Yeah,
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And
That's
then,
fun.
It's kind of like what we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes, like I feel like sometimes like writing individually, like I think especially during like early quarantine, I was definitely around Jake more than I was around Raz, just because we were really trying to play it safe. So like Jake was the only person I had seen like the whole time, and so we were writing like just a couple things, and it was cool, and like, you know, that whole movement of the song was working, and then bringing it to Raz, it's like, oh my god, this whole other door was open. And then vice versa, like in the past, like Raz and I would write almost everything like together, and then bringing it to Jake, and it comes something totally different. So totally relate.
yeah. So how, I guess maybe you wouldn't know this going off of your previous answer, but how many songs can we expect on this new album? Is it going to be a full-length album or just
We don't know.
Do we tell them?
Oh, secrets.
You can give like it's between.
But there's
I know, but like.
should we talk?
There's
about
like 10.
There's like roughly
No.
10. For like.
Why?
Yeah, we could.
Somewhere between 1 and 100.
Yes.
Yeah. Somewhere between what?
Between 1 and 25.
Yeah, basically.
We have
Just like
you can just fuck it. We don't have a manager or a label. I mean, we do. Octo Heart Records, they're amazing.
We love that.
But I mean, like, we don't have like we're not sworn to secrecy.
Yeah.
But as of now, we're like thinking that like this batch of songs is probably gonna make its way into like a double record. I think we, especially having all this time to write, there's been just such a continuation of like these themes and like these sounds that we're working with, to where it's like I was saying earlier, like the what ifs, like there's just too many almost, and you just like it came to the point where it was like we're censoring ourselves. Yeah, exactly. It's
the
like,
what ifs become why not.
So yeah, exactly. That's a great way of putting it. And so it's just like the way to be truest to ourselves is just to see everything through. And
I think we really tried to fit it into one project, but we were so excited about so many other things, and we're like, but it all fits so much together that we're like, well, guess we're coming out with 2 then.
Yeah. So I feel like the 2 projects that we have in mind right now are kind of like responses to one another.
They're sisters.
Definitely.
And that's all we'll say.
That's all we'll say. The curtain draw.
Yeah.
The only thing better than an answer to how many songs are going to be on there is hearing that there's going to be 2 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any events on the horizon for y'all besides working on this album? Like, do you know anything of what the future holds for you besides releasing this at some point?
Pretty much, like, I mean, even before quarantine started, we were going to take a hiatus from shows to work on recording. So we had like, I think 1 or 2 things that we were going to do before that like took hardcore effect, but we didn't have many cancellations going into quarantine to have to think about. So our main priority is still like, we were just stoked when we finally like all came to terms and like protocols with like, okay, we're going to get tested really frequently and we can start like seeing each other and being safe, because we know each other's circles. Like we don't stray very far. And if we do, we're completely safe, like getting tested and wearing masks and being distant. So the main thing has just been to do that, and then to find like small acclimations to this environment. So we may or may not have like some fun live stream stuff coming. So stay tuned on the old social media.
Yeah, so hopefully that, and then hopefully an album eventually whenever we're able to get back in the studio.
Or
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Sick.
Plus, we're excited though. For
Yeah.
everything that's coming
Yeah.
up.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all my notes we went through that I was curious about. Is there anything else that you want to say? I mean, you can talk to me because I'm here, but I mean, if there's something that you want to like address the ether of the internet.
We're dropping a single soon
Oh yeah.
from our newest project. So look out for that. It's going to be called Lycanthropy. And we've been playing it live for quite a while. So we're really excited to finally get that out.
Will I recognize it?
Yes.
Probably.
Probably.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
That we have shirts now.
Oh,
brand,
oh my God.
Merch.
Brand
Got
new
one?
stock, huh?
Grab
Oh,
a
yeah.
shirt.
Wait, like one of the newbies?
Yeah. Shout out
Those
to
are cool.
Demented Doodles in Venice, California.
Sean draws things made by Sean. Look at this.
Fuck, man. I wish.
Look at this hot piece of something right here.
Yeah. Hot.
It's
Yeah.
hot.
It's hot off the. It's hot.
It's
It's hot
so
off the
hot.
presses.
It's so hot.
It's hot off the presses.
Hell yeah.
I was so stuck between getting that one or getting.
Oh hell yeah!
That's so sad.
Look
Oh
at
my
that.
God, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So much
Yeah.
fun to be just like repping friends.
Dude,
Yeah.
so true.
You know?
That's so true.
I made a vow that all my shirts would be bands I've seen live, and now that's mostly the Cramps. I wish, dude.
I know.
But or
Yeah, so
bands
true.
that I really, really like.
Yeah.
Dress up as the
That's a
Cramps
good one.
sometime.
That'd be cool.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Anyway.
pretty much.
Yeah, so we got merch, we got live streams, we got a single, maybe even 2 albums.
Maybe
Ooh.
a music video.
Oh,
Or 2, or 17.
you never
I
know.
know.
The sky's the limit. The world's the oyster.
Yes.
And we're the pearl.
Yes.
Mm. Yes. A
Is
shiny
that
pearl.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But any Hooters.
Anyway, thank you
Super
so much.
Yeah, dude,
Aiden.
thank
Yeah.
you. This has
Yeah.
been so
Yeah,
fun.
and thank you
Thank
for
you.
like listening and like really thinking. I don't know, like I really appreciate the work you put in.
Yeah,
to this.
same.
Like, really.
I'm excited to see the other interviews
Yeah, I'm
too.
super stoked.
Yeah, well, y'all are the first. So
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, that's so
I'm
cool.
happy to help.
Who else are you doing or working with?
I might be doing Without Words on Sunday.
Cool.
You know what's really funny? I hit up Without Words and asked them, and they said they'd be down. And then literally like an hour later, the Not So Collective post their thing about the interview Without Words.
Oh my god. That's so
What?
funny.
That's so funny.
Did I post that?
You manifested it. For
Yeah.
For
sure.
real. Yeah.
That's cool,
That's
man.
cool.
Let us know if you need help getting in contact with anyone, or
Mhm.
we'll put in a good word, because this was really good, man. You were really well-rounded interviewer.
Yeah.
You gave Nardwar a serious run for his money.
Yeah, he's the chief competitor.
Yeah. No, but this was great, dude. Thank you for all the time you put into thinking it out and listening to the stuff. We appreciate it.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, oh yeah. It's a video without an animal feature.
Yeah.
I've
This
got my
is
kitties
fun.
here at home.
That's cute.
Mm.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you for your time. It's, I'm just here in my room doing something. So it's like, I might as well spend time learning about my friends.
Hell yeah, man.
That's
It's
so
awesome.
sweet.
No, it's cool. I realized like in the middle of this, I was like, dang, I wish I could like have these conversations like with like fellow artists all the time. Like,
Yeah.
Instead it's just like,
true.
what'd you do yesterday? Or like, like, no, it's really cool. And like, I loved hearing about like your process as well. It was
Yeah.
really cool.
It's cool to compare notes.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to y'all. I kind of had a similar realization, Jenna, halfway through, kind of like, oh, like if I talk to everyone like this, like I don't know, you guys are talking about oh shit, what's the name of the song again? Perfect and Wordless.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I know cool things about this song now, or whatever.
Yeah.
I know tidbits and anecdotes that like are really special, and now I'm in on that.
Yes.
And there was a moment where I was like, wow, like what does the future hold? Talking to all these other people, you know, it's just so much. But yeah, I appreciate that y'all were able to come together and do this, and y'all were rehearsing today, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Like, thanks for taking 3 hours out of your practice.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, it was
Anytime.
fun.
Yeah.
This was 3 hours.
Yes.
Insane. You're gonna have some
Wait, what's
serious
It's
content.
been like 2.5, I think, but
Wow.
actually, not even.
Fucking nuts.
Okay, wow. That's crazy.
Crazy.
Really nice.
Well,
Time. It's fast.
yeah, maybe we can do this again sometime.
Yeah,
sure, man.
absolutely. Oh my god, totally just hit us up. It's so
Mhm.
fun to talk.
Fuck yeah, me too. I would be honored.
Aw. So sweet. Aww.
All right, dude.
Well, cool, man.
So fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Aiden. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good
Good night.
night.
We'll
Good
talk.
night.
Bye.
We'll talk soon.
Bye.
If you made it this far into the video, I first off just want to thank you for watching this conversation and having a good time and learning about street play. Remember to like this video and subscribe for next week's conversation and other series in the future, and even the return of season 2 of Making Music with Baby Arugula. All of the links to street play for Instagram, streaming platforms, BandCamp, all that, you can find it down below in the description. And you can also find plenty of other links to support me and the channel as well down in the description. So thank you all so much for watching. My name is Baby Arugula, and I hope I'll see you next week. Cheers.